Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Now before we do get into this video, I do want to take a quick moment to apologise that this method should have been released about 3 to 4 weeks ago, but unfortunately I've just been incredibly busy with my personal life. Now it is thanks to KW Ridley 27 for sending me this build over on PSN, and it's the return of one of the most extreme cars in GT history in a 600 pp Tokyo build form. Of course, I'm talking about the Escudo Pikes Peak. Now, if you want to pick up this car, you can pick it up from the Legends car dealership for 1.7 million credits. However, just a quick note that it is on rotation, so it won't always be there. But when it is, I fully suggest picking up this car, as in total, it's probably earned me around about 50 million credits ever since it released, in multiple different forms. Now, if you didn't know or you was living under a rock, the Suzuki Escudo was one of the most broken, glitched cars in GT7 completely ever since it arrived in game, and its Tokyo 600 build survived all the way up until January of 2025 when the physics update completely killed off that build. Now, thanks to KW Ridley, he made me aware of this more down-to-earth build. However, these same rules apply. So let's get into the build itself. Now, of course, we're going to start off with the Escudo Pikes Peak, so once you've purchased that, if you want to copy my livery, it's this one by Chakit. I have probably completely butchered that, so I apologise, but he has made this awesome V6 Escudo Pikes Peak livery, which I've been running for the longest time now. So go ahead and send him love from the channel. Now, in terms of the rest of the build, the only thing that you really need to change is going to be the wheels. Now, as you can see, I'm running the Enki 92s. Now, of course, for the diameter, you probably guessed looking at it, but I'm running the highest diameter at 20 inches. As for the width, it is set to wide, and as for the offset, once again, it is set to wide. Now let's head over to the tuning sheet for the rest of the build. Now, as you can see, we're running the Comfort hard compound of tyres here. Don't let that fool you, you're going to be using this as a wall riding rocket ship. So of course, by default, we have the fully customized suspension. The body height at the front is going to be set to 80, and at the rear is going to be set to 91. Anti-roll bar is set to 7 at the front and 10 at the rear. Compression is 34 across for both. Expansion is 44 across for both, and natural frequency is set to 430 across for both. Negative camber angle at the front is 2.0 and 1.5 at the back. Toe angle is 0 at the front and 0.20 inwards at the rear. Fully customizable differential is once again standard. The initial torque is set to 5 for both. Acceleration is 40 and 55, and braking is once again 5 across the board. Now for the front rear torque distribution, this is 45 and 55. Next up is of course the fully customizable racing transmission, which we have set to 350. As for the manual adjustments, the final is 2.230, the sixth is 1.335-365, fifth is 1.542-305, the fourth is 1.793-262, the third is 2.441-192, second is 2.943-160, and first is 3.921-120. Feel free to pause it if you want to copy those gears down. Ballast is on and set to 60 with a positioning of 12. Now, one thing I'm going to show you here is just how much it alters the car if you move it a little bit too much or a little bit too less. So as you can see, adding more on doesn't really change it. One back though, and it will bump up by around about 43 points, which is just ridiculous. So 12 is the sweet spot. The same if you go ahead and move the ballast off of 60. One off will just bump it through the roof and it cannot enter. So downforce is set at 221 and the rear is 499. Everything else is pretty much standard as to what you'd see on the default car. In the end, this will allow you to essentially break the tuning sheet and get it under 600 pp. So welcome to the build explained section. Now of course, I woke up to a message one day on PSN and all of a sudden I had KW Ridley messaging me a brand new build for the Suzuki Escudo. Of course, making mention that the old one got completely butchered by the January 2025 update when they went ahead and messed around with the physics, which was a real shame considering for many physics changes changes and updates, the Suzuki Escudo build had survived, and honestly I racked up plenty of millions of credits just running that in a war ride method, and well, I was kind of gutted to be honest, as I didn't think it would return. So thankfully when this message popped up and it was a more down to earth build, but still very much a broken one that realistically can get you in the 1:40 for a lap time, I was absolutely over the moon and ready to roll around in my Escudo once again. So as mentioned, this Escudo build right here is still very much broken and it shouldn't really be allowed to enter this. However, the one thing that is completely buttering that PP rating is not only the ballast and aero positioning, it's actually going to be the comfort hards. Now unfortunately that means this thing handles like a boat. Thankfully Tokyo is set up as the kind of almost perfect wall riding track, so that's how I fully recommend running it. Again, some of your best laps can be anywhere from like a 1:48 to a 1:52 depending on, you know, how comfortable you are with it and how you go about wall riding. Honestly, if you're not going to war ride or you're completely against it, then unfortunately this build just isn't going to be for you. However, if you're not against it and you don't really care since you're playing the AI in the single player, then welcome back to the Suzuki Escudo. Let's get into the strategy then. Now it has changed slightly from what we saw previous. Now of course this time around you are going to have to do one single pit stop, and that is mainly going to be for the fuel. Prior to this you were able to get away with doing a zero stopper thanks to the extra power and being able to run it in fuel mix 6 for the majority of the time. Now this build, to get the most out of it, you're going to have to run fuel mix 1, which does force us to have to pit and will add time on. However, in terms of its overall top speed and performance, it's very similar to the old build. Set the game to the hardest difficulty, get in fuel mix 1 and just absolutely go for it for turn 1. Then head to your left and ride up on the first corner. At this point you will be pretty much clear of the rest of the AI and just continue to let the car drive itself off of the walls, putting a bit of control in there just to ensure that you're aiming at the right section of the right track. Again, just to avoid any accidents. The one thing you don't want to do is hit the AI or run these white lines here. As you can see, I got incredibly sketchy into this final corner, but did manage to bring it around so that I didn't lose the clean race bonus. Once you get onto lap 4, the conditions will start to dry up and your lap time, well, it's going to decrease dramatically. Now for the majority of the time at this point, I haven't been wall riding anything other than the first corner. However, I decided to kind of change it up to see just how much quicker it is if I just let the car pretty much auto drive off of the walls, and this allowed my lap times to absolutely plummet, sometimes downwards of a 1:50 to a 1:52 on average. So if you want those extra seconds off and you know you want to make up for the pit stop that you're going to have to do, I honestly just recommend just riding those walls. Now in terms of fuel mixes, it's going to be up to the player themselves how they want to do it, but you want to be aiming to box in at the end of lap 7, so just be sure to keep your eye on the fuel. I recommend fuel mix 1 on the main straight and then turn it down anywhere from sort of fuel mix 3 to 4, maybe even 6 if you really want to be cautious, and then just go ahead and balance it through the tight and twisty sections. At that point turn it back up on the straight, rinse and repeat. So your pit stop's going to come at the end of lap 7. Now I've got 0.3 laps of fuel left. What I'm going to do here is of course not take tyres because there's no point, there's almost no wear on the comfort hards, but I am going to fill the car up quite a reasonable amount. The main reason for this is once I've done my pit stop, I just want to run fuel mix 1 to the end. Again, just ensuring that I'm balancing it if I really need to, but most of the time you won't have to. The best way to do that is just put a slight bit of extra fuel in to just ensure you don't end up stranded on the track. At that point just keep on ticking off those laps, and once you come to the end of lap 12 you are going to be done and dusted here, and well, there you go, a pretty easy nice first place in a pretty reasonable time. Now since this was my original run and I was still adapting, this was a 23 minutes 43.121, which is still incredibly fast for Tokyo, but since then I am bordering on the 22-minute runs once again with this thing, which is incredible. Whilst it's certainly a more down-to-earth build, it's still insanely fast in the right hands. And there we go, 825k in those 23 minutes, and again this is going to allow you to run it almost 3 times in a single hour. If you do the maths, it's over 2 million credits in around about a 1 hour 10 minute minute time period, which is still up there as one of the better ones currently in Gran Turismo 7. A huge thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen now. Once again, a thank you to the guy who went over and sent this build to me and finally made me aware that the Escudo Pikes Peak was back. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and if you do have any builds, feel free to pop them in the comment section or message me on the likes of PSN. I'll read each and every single one of them, and whilst it might take me some time to go ahead and actually get the build done, I will probably eventually do a build on it as long as it's good enough. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys, peace.